Seems like everybody wants to know, does this feel like a Kobe? Kinda. What's up, y'all? Thanks for watching WearTesters on YouTube. My name is Jackson. Today we got a performance review on the Li-Ning Wade 808-2 as well as the 808-2 Ultra.
Both.
There are a few differences between the two models, so we will get into that. But as always, we're gonna start with my favorite aspect of the shoe, which is, without a doubt, the traction. Both models use the same pattern, so the traction is identical, whether you're in the standard or the Ultra version. The pattern is thick, it's multi-directional, and it doesn't just squeak, it screeches. The outsole is rounded on the medial side. That's good for shifty players. The pattern wraps up the medial side of the shoe just a little bit, and then you've got these weird little nubs. This traction pattern handled every court that I played on, no matter the condition. And based on the fact that it is a thick pattern and the rubber is fairly durable, this is gonna be a really good outdoor option. Woo! Also, traction. Both of my pairs feature solid rubber outsoles. From what I have heard, the translucent outsoles. Now let's talk cushion, and this is where one of the bigger differences between the two variations of the model arises. So the 808-2 features a drop-in midsole, and if you've been living under a rock the last 10 years, I'll explain to you what a drop-in midsole is. They're exactly what they sound like. It's the entire midsole of a shoe, separate from the shoe itself. You can't substitute these midsoles for an insole, and you can't put an insole on top of these midsoles. This is what goes in the shoe, nothing else. So what's the appeal of a drop-in midsole, you may ask? Well, it's because each version of the shoe has a different one, and they're interchangeable. The standard version's drop-in is made of Li-Ning's Cloud Foam. If you want a reference for how it feels, it's pretty similar to the Lunar Lawn drop-ins that Nike was putting on Kobe models in the past. It's lightweight, it's not the softest, but it's comfortable and it's very smooth on court. Impact protection was adequate for me. This model definitely prioritizes court feel and responsiveness, especially with the Cloud Foam. If you're looking for something a little bit softer, that's where the Boom drop-in midsole from the Ultra version comes in. It's the exact same size, exact same height as the standard midsole, but this is made of Li-Ning's Boom cushion. The difference is that this foam is noticeably softer than the Cloud Foam, which is kind of funny because, you know, cloud's supposed to be soft. Now, when you drop this into the shoe, obviously it's going to be caged everywhere, so it's going to subdue some of the softness of that Boom cushion. But it's still a noticeable difference, and actually I think I preferred the Boom a little bit over the Cloud Foam. One nice thing about the Boom drop-in is it also has this soft little sock liner up in the forefoot, and that's because on the Cloud Foam drop-in, obviously you don't have that, and you've got a lot of grooves right in here, and they don't like eat up the bottoms of your feet like a lot of people had problems with on the GT Cut. This more just kind of grabbed my socks. I don't know, it was kind of uncomfortable. So to recap, this one's a little bit softer than this one. This one is pretty reminiscent of a Lunar Lawn drop-in. Now we're moving on to materials, and this is probably my least favorite aspect of the shoe. The front half of both shoes are pretty similar. You've got a material that's somewhere between Jordan's Leno weave and just like Fuse. The plus side of this is that it's really breathable. You can see all those perforations. It's durable as well. It holds its shape well, but they're also not quite as comfortable as something just like a knit or an engineered mesh or even a leather. It doesn't quite move with your foot the same way. Doesn't quite flex the same way. The evidence of that is there's a tiny bit of extra space above the toe, and so you get that weird little fuse bubble. You know what I'm talking about. You've also got some additional heat welded material in high wear areas, and with all of that being said, the materials work. They're functional. They hold their shape, they're durable, they contain the foot, they're pretty strong, they're breathable, just not my favorite. So, you know, I can't really complain, but, you know, it ain't this, and it ain't even this, but they work. Where the Ultra steps things up is in the back half of the shoe. So whereas the standard version has a pretty traditional tongue and lacing setup, you've got this really awkward synthetic piece here on the top of the tongue that doesn't really feel that great, especially if you're wearing like no-show socks. Chris.
What?
Collar area. It attaches to the tongue and kind of forms an inner booty. This is much more comfortable than what the standard version offers. Not that this would turn me away, but this just feels a lot better. This collar also kind of hugs your ankle a little bit higher than the standard version. The standard version is a super low cut shoe. So if you don't want something that feels that low, this fixes that entirely. And it still offers the same mobility as the standard version. The other material change from the standard to the Ultra is that on the Ultra you have a carbon fiber heel counter, while on the standard it's just regular TPU. Did it make a difference performance-wise? Not really. Yeah, this carbon fiber is extremely sturdy, but the TPU on the standard version holds its own just fine. The tongue is a really thin mesh, so while that does help with the breathability even more, I was feeling some lace pressure. That is another aspect of the materials that I really wasn't a big fan of. Because as we've seen throughout the years, even going back to like the torch tongue on the Kobe 5 and 6, you can make a breathable tongue that is also padded enough that you don't have to have unnecessary lace pressure. Now moving on to the fit, I got true to size in both pairs, and that is what I would recommend if you have narrow feet or if you have normal feet. If you have wide feet, go up half a size. These things do run fairly snug through the midfoot. Things do widen out a little bit when you get into the forefoot, not to the point where I noticed my foot shifting during play, but these aren't gonna like squeeze your toes like some shoes do. The area of the shoe that I've heard the most complaints about is the heel, specifically on the standard version. And yeah, the standard version is super low cut, so when I put these on, it felt weird. It felt like my heel was kind of naked. I did feel a little bit of heel slippage like right when I would put them on, and then normally after about 10 minutes of play, I'd get warmed up, I'd get going, my feet would start swelling a little bit. I'd have to readjust my laces, but then after that, I didn't notice my heel shifting up and down, side to side, or anything like that. I felt pretty good. It's not the insane heel lockdown that so many Kobes became notorious for, but I did feel secure, and through the rest of my foot, I felt pretty good too. People have also complained about discomfort with kind of the walls on the sides of the drop-in midsole. I didn't have any problems with that whatsoever. The Ultra does fit a little bit better in the heel, which I attribute to this knit collar. I also feel like the collar padding on the inside of the shoe rests just a little bit higher up on my ankle than it did on the standard version. Although when I put these things up side by side, it's kind of hard to tell. Whether it was a mental thing or they really did fix any heel issues with the Ultra version, I thought this just fit a little bit nicer and felt a little more comfortable than the standard version. Again, any heel slippage I felt in this was kind of right when I would put them on before I would get warmed up. It was very minor. And then once I'd really get into playing, I didn't really feel it. I felt secure in these. I felt a little more secure in these. So take that how you will. Now let's get into support. It's on the minimal side, but there are a few things on here that really make it work. The first thing you gotta do is get your correct size. Here in the States, I know that's hard because you can't go into a store and try them on, but that's the first thing you gotta do in order to ensure that the shoe is supportive. The 808 does pack some pretty traditional support features. You have a wide base, an outrigger on the lateral side of the shoe. You also have this TPU shank plate here that you can see on the bottom of the shoe. It doesn't do a whole lot, but when you pair it with this TPU cage on the lateral side of the shoe, this does a lot of the heavy lifting as far as keeping the shoe flexible in the right areas and a little more rigid in the right areas where it needs to be rigid. The Boom drop-in midsole from the Ultra version also has another small TPU shank in the midfoot, so if you need a little bit extra torsional support, that is something to consider. Bottom line, if you've played in a shoe like the Kobe 11 that didn't even have a midfoot shank, you're gonna be able to play in these. It's not over-the-top support like, say, the LeBron 20, but as long as you get the correct fit, there's gonna be enough support features here for pretty much everybody. And that about rounds it out. Overall, is the Wade 808 kind of a new Kobe? There are definite similarities beyond just the drop-in midsole. Kind of feels reminiscent of the Kobe 8 and with some Kobe 11 mixed in, and even some NXT 360 mixed in there. These aren't the lightest shoes out there, especially for how sleek they look. There's not a noticeable difference in the weight between the two of these shoes either, but they do play a little bit lighter than they feel just because of how low to the ground you are. That rounded edge on the midsole also kind of provides a more mobile feeling. The breathability also adds to the lightweight feeling of the shoe. The collar height is super low. They're pretty low to the ground as well. They feel really quick. Traction's on point. Cushion feels a lot like the drop-in Kobe's. The materials are just whatever. The fit might be the most tricky thing, just again, because I've heard people complain about heel slippage. It wasn't an issue for me.
You know, that's just like your opinion, man.
But that is something that I have seen from many other people. If you're unsure about the sensation of playing in a really low cut shoe, because it is a different feeling even from playing in like a traditional lower cut shoe. Like these and these feel a lot different on foot. So if you're nervous at all about how low these are, go with the Ultra version and save yourself the stress. Also, if you want softer cushioning, go ahead and opt for the Ultra version. If you liked how the Lunarlon drop-ins on previous Kobe models felt, then you're probably gonna enjoy the standard version of the shoe. Of course, if you get both, you can just mix and match the cushion as you like. So there is about a $40 price difference between the two of these. Overall, I do prefer the Ultras just a little bit, but I'd totally recommend the standard version just as much. So that about wraps it up on the performance review of the Li-Ning Wade 808 2, both the standard and ultra versions. Of course, if you have the 808 2, go ahead and drop a comment. Let me know what you think about it. As always, thank you for watching, and until next time, peace and much love to you.